Hey everyone, and welcome to this Christmassy edition to this week's video. This video is probably going to go out on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. I'm not too sure on the time zone differences, but either way I hope you're having a good Christmas or are due to or already have had a good Christmas. Anyway, with that being said, this week's video is going to be slightly different. What I want to look, it's not really a tutorial to say, but I hope you're still going to get some brilliant use out of this. Essentially what I've been playing around with is the recently released Chat GPT. And if you're not familiar with Chat GPT, essentially the company OpenAI, which have one of the largest AI neural network databases. I don't know if it's a database, but one of the largest online neural networks. And essentially they've allowed the public to have a sort of a slice of this neural network, and you can use it to ask it pretty much anything that it can respond in text. It can help you with. It's been trained on data from up to 2021, so it's not actively live, but it's pretty good at filling in the blanks if it doesn't know. Now, with that being said, I probably would like to just pre-warn you that sometimes it does give you an answer that's not correct, but it's very confident even though it's not right. So it will tell you that it is right, but it will be wrong. That's only certain cases that I've seen, but ultimately, if I just pick up the site here, you can see that amongst other things that you can search for, it's pretty good at programming, it's pretty good at writing stories, anything sort of like generative it's really good at. But it's also, because it's had this previous training data preloaded into it, obviously it's had time to like scour the internet or scour certain resources like the Unreal documentation, because sometimes you can ask it questions about Unreal Engine and it gives you really good answers back. Now, sometimes some of the ones that I've read through don't necessarily look right. It sounds right, but when you go to put it in practice in Unreal, it doesn't actually quite work the way it says. But that being said, it still offers a lot of value. Now, just showing you some of the searches that I've done for Unreal here, I've just asked it simple questions like how would you implement an interactive system in Unreal Engine using Blueprint, and it runs through the various steps that it suggests you would take. What systems can be made within Unreal using blueprints, and it gives you a whole list of things. And then you can ask it then. So I've asked it basically what systems can be made, and it's thrown out a list of a few. I've selected one of them, so physics-based puzzles and interactions, and I've just asked it, can you expand on this? And it says, yeah, well, physics, interactions, so on and so forth. It breaks that down, and then you can further ask it questions based on what it gives you. So it's a two-way conversation, and it doesn't forget what you've previously talked about within one thread. So it's like, how can you make the objects be picked up, thrown? So I've just took something from what it's previously said and just asked it to build on it, and it shows me here how to then make it. So add a static mesh, and if you're not sure, you can ask it then, well, you've said add a component, but I don't actually know how to do that. How do I add a component? And then it'll tell you what to look for in the engine. So I think obviously from a I've never used Unreal point of view, it could probably give you some real good heads up of like, you could ask it literally, I can't see the button that you've told me to press, what else should I do? And it'll give you an alternative method. So using UE5, can you show me some examples for blueprint interfaces? And it goes through and tells you that you can create an interface called interactable, define some destroy function, which you may be able to put onto like boxes, barrels, or crates. And then when you build out this destroy function, essentially any object that you assign it to will have a function to be able to be destroyed. I think that was a really good answer, and then we can go further into it. How do I create custom landscapes? It tells you the steps you need to do. Import a landscape, but you'll need a height map. And then obviously, because it's got this step-by-step list, you can then go in and break it down. List 5 projects that I could make with UE5. Say I'm completely stuck and I'm like, what shall I try and make today? Just ask it. Just ask it. Or you can say list 5 first-person shooter projects that I could try and make, and it'll come up with a list of suggestions. So, like, for example, the first one here for my question is a first-person shooter game where the player navigates through different levels and environments, defeating enemies and completing objectives. You could also add various weapons, character customization options, or even online multiplayer. So some of these answers are really, really good. Now, that's not to say that there aren't resources on Google or sort of the Epic forums, because there certainly is. However, sometimes you can get lost in forums and everybody's got a different opinion. And true, this will probably have its opinion of its own, but I think if you're not too sure about something, it's probably a good place to start, or it's a good place to sort of inspiration gather as well. Just the fact that you can ask it to, like, chuck me a list of things together and I'll just pick one, you know. And then I've asked it some more specific things like, how can I make a mirror material in Unreal 5? And what I think we should do in this video is not just talk about what it can do. I've showed you some examples of the questions that I've chucked in, but I just want to test it a little bit. I'm not very good with materials, so in a sense I'm going to be a layman of not knowing much about it. I'm just going to read through this, honestly very with not much knowledge about this, and I'm just going to see if it builds out as well as I hope it will. You know, and then you can just throw in some more questions here, like, can you explain the best way to track a player's score in a shooter game? And what I will say is, the more information you give it, the better the answer will be. If you give it a really generic question like, how do I make a shooting game in Unreal, your answer is going to be very generic. But if you drill down into what you exactly want, how can I make a World War II style blah 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 game with online multiplayer, it will give you more of an accurate answer with that. So yeah, like I said, let's class this as like a part 2 of the video of just sort of like trying to see if what it's given me here is an actual working list of instructions. And let's say part 1 of this video was me just explaining about the actual system itself, the Chat GPT. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this window over to the side just so I can see it. And I've already got an Unreal sort of first-person template here. I've made it in Unreal 5 just because that's what I've asked it to help me make a material in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag in a basic plane. Shapes, here we've got plane. I'm just going to drag in a plane, and this is going to be what my mirror material is going to be on. So I'll pull that forward. Let's just scale it out a little bit, make it bigger. And hopefully this is going to be my mirror material. So I'll just move that back just a touch, not too much. So there we go. I'm hoping that when I play, I'm going to be able to see this as a mirror. So I'm going to follow the instructions now. So to create a mirror material in Unreal 5, follow these steps. So 1, in the content browser, create a new material by right-clicking and selecting material. So far so good. Let's select a material. So I'm going to call this one m_mirror. And hopefully that works. So I'm going to open that up. So obviously it doesn't go to absolute simpleton where it's telling you need to click on this to open it up. It's not. It's going to be realistic, and so am I. I'm not going to be, you know, I'm not going to take too much into consideration, but let's just work through it. So 2, in the material editor, add a base color node. by right clicking and selecting base color. Okay, so that's kind of not worked already. So in the material editor, add a base color node. Now, to be honest, this is probably like the base color node for me. But granted, I've done exactly what it says, and it's not right. Step 3 says connect the base color node to the material output node. This is kind of my material output node, so I'm going to help it a little bit here, which granted, if I didn't know anything about this, this wouldn't help me. But I'm going to select, actually I'm not, I'm just going to connect that up. Add a normal node by right clicking and selecting normal, and then connect that to the output. So again, I can't really do that. Normal, it's not really a node. Add a refraction node. So there is a refract node, but that's probably not what it means. So this isn't really helping me out this much. It reads, if you check this out, it actually reads really well. Like, add this node, connect it, add this node, connect it, add this node, change the blend mode. Now the blend mode to translucent, now I think this is going to be absolutely accurate. But the steps before it are just a little bit iffy. So I'm actually going to delete that that colour. So in the material properties panel on the right hand side of the editor, set the material domain to surface. So that's set to surface, that's fine, that's accurate. So by step 8 we're getting somewhere. Step 9, send the blend mode to translucent. Yes, okay, that works. Which now gets rid of half of those. Set the opacity property to 1. So that's going to be there. So I'm just going to press 1 on the keyboard to create a constant. And I'm going to set this to 1. Opacity to 1. And the refraction property to 1. So we do have a refraction property. So let's plug that in. Set that to 1. Now my normal is now coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that that vector constant as well for the RGB. I'm just going to set the color to, I'm going to go for a light grey. Set that as the base color, just so it's got something. Because I don't think mirrors are, I think mirrors have a colour in a sense. If you look at a colour from an angle, it looks kind of like, well, it looks like a reflection, but let's not get into that. And I guess I could just plug that into the normal because I don't really have a normal. So this will create a basic mirror that can be applied to any surface in your scene. You can control the amount of refraction property by changing the refraction colour. So that doesn't sound too right, but we're going to press apply and we're just going to see what this spits out. So let's drag this mirror onto there. Let's hit play. Yeah, so my mirror is really good actually. So what does this value? This takes in a texture, simulates refraction. So set it to 0. But obviously I'm very basic when it comes to, when it comes to materials. So I'm just taking some guesses here. Some of these values I know can only go between 0 and 1. So I'm really just playing with things here. Yeah, so I'm going to say that one doesn't work, so I'm going to stop playing around with it, and I'm gonna drag this over, and I'm just going to ask it again. But what I'll do is I'll create a new chat, and I'll just say how to create Now, obviously, I said this Chat GPT was trained on data from 2021, so there is a chance that obviously Unreal 5 might not have been documented enough, or it may not have had enough time to get documentation. So I'm going to ask it how to create the same thing but in Unreal 4, and I'm going to expect a lot of things to be similar, but it might actually be accurate. The fact is that a lot of them nodes didn't exist. I'm possibly going to assume that because it didn't have the data, it makes assumptions, and then because it's wrong, it's confidently wrong. As I mentioned at the beginning, I feel like that might be a factor here. I wish it just told you, I'm not too sure, this is my best guess, at least then I know, how to create a mirror material. No, I was thinking, do I reword it to reflective? But a mirror's reflective, it should know that. In UE4, let's just abbreviate it and see if that spits anything out. So obviously this is live now. This has not been pre-generated, so I don't know what it's going to spit out. So open up UE4, create a new project, or open an existing. In your content browser, create a material by right-clicking and select material. Double-click the new material, so it's actually telling me how to get into it this time. In the material editor, add an output button. Oh, sorry, click the add output button and select reflection vector. So let's just drag this over here and let's just tell you what we'll do. We'll just create a new one. Let's duplicate. No, let's not. New material, m_mirror v2. Let's try. So we'll drag that up. So we've double clicked it. So step 3 is double click. Step 4 is in the material editor, click the add output button. I don't see an add output button. Now granted, I did say in Unreal 4, however I'm not too sure that the UI has changed that much. So what's it say? And select reflection vector. Reflection vector. So there is a reflection vector there. Custom reflection vector. Input a normal to generate a reflection vector. What's this one? Adds a reflection. Let's just try that. That doesn't look good, but let's just go with it. From the list of options, this will add a new node to the... Okay. Connect the reflection vector node to the normal input of the material's base color node. So that's that. Okay, that's gone black. Number 6. In the material graph, add a Fresnel node. So I know that exists because I've used that before. Fresnel. Add a Fresnel node and connect it to the alpha input of the base color node. So I don't have connect it to the alpha input of the base color node. So do I make one of these? Nope. See, normally what I'd do is I would create a colour like this, and then it's RGBA apparently, or that's going to be that one, isn't it? So that'd be your alpha. So I'm not too sure how I would do this one. So what I could do in this instance is I could ask it. So in the material graph, add a Fresnel node and connect it to the alpha. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bang that in there like that and just see what happens, to be honest. In the Fresnel node, set the power value to a high number such as 10. It says power value, but there isn't a power value, so we'll just go with exponent 10. And to create the mirror effect, you also want to add a blend mode node and set it to translucent. Now that isn't correct because the blend mode is actually a part of the this material node, and set that to translucent. So to be honest, that looks cool. Whether it actually acts as we expect it to. Let's apply. Let's go back to my map and let's drag that onto here. Let's press play. So we don't have a mirror. Now, just in case I'm being a complete noob, I'm going to pull this forward. Now, yeah, so my expectation was right. From the other side, it doesn't do anything. But just to clarify, I'm just going to chuck this onto some cubes. And yeah, just to clarify, so we're getting no reflection on this whatsoever. So that's fine. It's not just being silly. Okay, so that one's not worked, obviously. Okay, so I've got another one here that I'm just going to try. So what I've done is I've just asked it, can you explain how to make an automatic fire within an FPS shooter game in Unreal? And it gives me some options. Basically, it tells me that I'll need to add an automatic fire function, but it doesn't describe how to make that. So I just asked it, how do you create the automatic fire function? So it's given me some steps to follow. I'm reading this and I'm not too convinced about it. But I just want to go through it and just see if it works. Now, reading it, it doesn't give bad information. I just don't think it's the right information for it to work. Like, when you read it, you could probably think, if you've got a little bit of experience with Unreal, you could probably read through it and go, okay, I understand the steps now, but I don't think they're the right nodes to use within Blueprint. Now, granted, I will say I think it's a little bit better at generating C++ code. I think it's had a bit more experience with that. Because if you ask it, can you write this in C++, it'll spit you back the code, which is a lot more useful. So I'll let this do its thing, but in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just create this. Typically, this will spit out some code in just a minute, but for now, let's just have a look at this. So let's move that over there. So what I've done is, because I've opened this up in the new Unreal, the weapon system's not like the previous versions where it was either on the first person character, or I think on 5.03 it was within the rifle, but now they've added it to this component, so it's now a weapon component instead. So we're going to have to add it in here. I'm not too sure if this is going to affect it because I'm kind of having to merge the two together, but we'll have to have a little look. So the first step is to create a function called automatic fire, which takes in no input and no parameters. So for me, I'm just going to assume that's a custom event. So I'm just going to create a bit of space here. I'm just going to create a custom event, and I'm just going to call this auto fire. Now, for me, auto fire is going to spawn a projectile repeatedly. So step 2, inside the auto fire function, check if the player is holding down the fire button. Now obviously this is going to be triggered by me pressing the fire button, so I need to be careful how I merge these two things together. I guess the other option I could really do is get rid of this. But I still need something to trigger this, which is a bit annoying. You could do this by using the is input key down node. Let's check. Is input key down. So is alt key shift control command. So it's not that. Is key down. Now, I know there is a key down button, or at least there used to be. The is key pressed, something like that. But I don't know if I'm going to have to take that from the player controller. Returns true if a key... No. Key events. It is a key event. Modifiers. Let's... Is button. Is mouse button? No. Is mouse button down? No. Is down? Let's have a look at this. No. No, no, no. No. No, 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 no. Pressed. Key. So we've got get key. Let's so it doesn't really return. Doesn't really return if it's down. I might be being a bit of a noob here. Down? No, that's a terrible thing to type in. Is down? Don't know. There's mouse button. No, so get player controller. Let's do that, and then from that, let's get key down. Is input key down? So yeah. So what it's missing is getting the information from the player controller. So let's do that now. Obviously, it's not told me to make this inside the player. It's not told me to make this inside the player controller. So it, you know, I don't know if it's assumed that I should know that, but obviously without it, I couldn't have done that. So we want to do mouse, left mouse button. So if it's down, this is going to return true. So then it says, inside the automatic fire function, check if the character is holding down the fire button, and if the gun has any remaining ammo. Now, I don't have an ammo counter. I'm not going to add it because it's just going to complicate things. Oh, I guess I could. Ammo. So let's go float. Let's compile. Let's set this to 10 just to keep it simple. And let's get ammo and let's say greater than or no, greater than 0. So I guess that's going to be an AND. Now it doesn't tell me to use an AND node. It just says if both of these conditions are true. So I guess if my ammo's greater than that and the button's down, I can fire. So if both of these are true, call the fire function that you previously created. I don't think you know how that works, to be honest. Because I'm essentially calling myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug these into there, like that. And then I'm actually going to plug this auto fire into the spawn projectile. And then essentially once I've pressed this button, if the button's down, which it will be, I'm going to auto fire. But I think that'll only do it once. That's my problem. To make the auto fire function repeat at a specific rate, you can use a delay node, which won't help necessarily. To stop calling the automatic fire function, you could use a while loop node. So see, for me, actually, what I think would be better is if we remove that branch, plug in this condition, set that to trigger it and do auto fire every time, but then delay that. I guess in theory that could work. So when we trigger it, we're going to trigger this while loop, and if I continue to hold the button, which I don't know if there's going to be enough time for that to return true, the while loop would fire, it would be hit by a delay, then it'd fire, but then this would continue to go until this is not true, which would keep shooting. So let's just give that a try and let's just see what happens. So we'll go grab the gun. And yeah, so an infinite loop is detected, which isn't really great. Repeatedly executes as long as the condition is true. Now obviously this could be an infinite loop, but okay, I've never really successfully used a while loop in Unreal, so maybe that was very bad information, but this ChatGPT's, although that it's not reliable at giving you actual blueprints to just copy and paste, I wouldn't recommend that anywhere. And in a sense, I'm actually glad that it doesn't give you fully working code, because in a sense, I feel like some people would just ask it things and just copy and paste it, which isn't great, isn't a good idea. I think it gives you enough information to sort of go and do a bit more research in areas that will help you make the systems that you need, and I think it gives you more enough of a mindset, or at least enough information to get a mindset of, okay, I understand the steps involved with what I want to make, although it's told me some nodes and some information that may or may not exist, which doesn't help me, which is a shame. It is a shame, but also it tells you enough about what you're kind of gonna need, which I quite like a little bit. But yeah, you can see it's starting to write a little bit of code here. It's telling you some steps that you need to take. Just basically going back onto this, can you write it in C++? And I do like its information. It's obviously pulling this information from somewhere. It's obviously scraped together a lot of resources and it's putting this information together. Some of these previous nodes that it talks about, I think it assumes too much, which isn't great. But I think if you give it enough time and enough context and you really refine these questions down to, no, that doesn't exist, can you go into it a little bit more, I feel like it could eventually, with some improvements, and maybe if they update the resources in the back end to be more modern, if you could, from what I understand, you can possibly send it documentation, so you could possibly provide it with some of the Unreal 5 documentation and say, using this information, can you help me build this thing? But I think with a bit more updated information in the back end, I think it could be really good. But like I said, I think it's very useful anyway. I think it gives you enough information to sort of put stuff together, and it might offer you suggestions that you might not have thought about yourself. This might have ended up turning into quite a long one. I know we've not actually, like I said, it's not really a tutorial. It's more of a here, look at this new shiny thing. I really like it. Now, I don't just like it for the Unreal stuff that it spits out. I obviously try and use it in other areas. I've used other languages. It's pretty good at web development. There's tons of things. It can write stories and all sorts of stuff. I'm quite impressed with what they've done there. But yeah, I hope if you wasn't aware of it and you are now aware of it, please just log in and have a play with it. It's an amazing bit of kit. If you are aware of it, I hope that you may not have been aware of how you could use it in some ways. Obviously, I've not gone too far into the actual OpenAI itself. I wanted to get a bit more involved with Unreal, but Yeah, let me know your thoughts. What do you think of it? Is it scary? Is it not very good? I believe it's limited to sort of like 15% of its possibility or something like that. Should we be able to use the rest of its possibility? Should they open it up to the live web so we can feed it live information and ask it information on that? Could that be dangerous? Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts, so just leave a comment down below. I hope this video was of some use to you. If it was, please consider giving me a like, thumbs up. Yeah, and I guess it's Christmas, so go and enjoy yourself, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you.